Doris Meissner, and I'm very pleased to welcome you this morning for the release of a report we've been working on that is called Executive Action on Immigration: 6 Ways to Make the System Work Better. Now, the premise of this work is a very basic notion, and that is that immigration reform legislation, which has been such a preoccupation in the debate in recent years, is unlikely in the near term. And in the meanwhile, of course, as we all know, there is a whole statutory framework for immigration laws on the books that are being implemented every day and that affect the lives of millions of people around the world and in this country, including 1 million people who come here legally through our legal immigration system every year. So the idea, of course, is that the agencies that administer those laws and run that system should be doing all that's possible to really use those laws to achieve the goals of our immigration system. With that in mind, we looked at a whole range of ideas that are possible administratively and assessed them from the standpoint of what would be real improvements and distilled them to 6. Now, these 6 ideas are by no means an exhaustive list. There are many, many other things that could be done, but they are discrete areas where we believe there is substantial promise for improving the way in which the system works, and they are ideas that can be done without legislation and without substantial infusions of new resources. I'm going to talk about the first of those ideas. My co-authors, Don Kerwin and Margie McHugh, are going to follow with the others, and then we're going to have comments from 2 people, Juan Osuna and Eva Milona.
That the President should create a White House office on immigrant integration led by an assistant to the President, and that the office would convene appropriate cabinet members as well as a working group of state and local officials to establish immigrant integration goals and targets, coordinate existing programs, and develop policy and budget mechanisms for meeting integration goals. It would also task agencies with gathering and analyzing data in order to establish a federal agency framework of integration goals and indicators. They would track the performance of key federal and state integration programs, including measures of the program's reach, effectiveness, cost, and also identify and recommend future policy and program measures to address integration needs and immigration policy effects. Thirdly, it would coordinate with the Office of Management and Budget and relevant federal agencies, look at their processes to analyze integration-related data and policy options for all new immigration proposals or new proposals affecting key integration service areas such as elementary and secondary education, adult basic education, and English instruction, workforce training, healthcare, and the like. It would resolve disagreements among federal agencies on jurisdiction, policy, and budget matters relating to integration issues and services, and it would engage key stakeholders at different levels of government in identifying key integration opportunities and challenges and in communicating the critical importance of immigrant integration for the success of immigrants and their children, and also for the success of the communities in which they settle and of the nation as a whole.
Our recommendation is that USCIS should adjudicate waiver applications prior to the time that visa beneficiaries leave the United States for consular processing. We also recommend that the waiver adjudication process be centralized and that it build on the best practices like clear communication of waiver processing times and immediate approval of clearly approvable waivers that have been developed by USCIS at the Ciudad Juarez office. And we recommend that USCIS should expedite adjudication of waiver requests. Again, this is a pro-family proposal for people who have gone through the legal process and whose visa petitions have been approved. Let me discuss the next 2 ideas quickly together, and they involve the need to exercise discretion on a case-by-case basis consistent with uniform enforcement priorities across all immigration agencies, programs, processes, and partnerships. We also recommend that a specially trained group of ICE attorneys screen cases based on prosecutorial discretion guidelines before they're placed in the immigration court system.
We do often hear that our immigration system is broken, as the report says, and certainly it is a system that is often illogical and does not always serve the national interest. And we do, of course, have to find a rational solution to the problem of the people living, the millions living in the shadows in our country. Until we have comprehensive reform, we will have an imperfect effort at reform. And that's why this president and this administration do remain committed to comprehensive immigration reform and have tried to get this moving forward over the last couple of years. But of course, as all of you know, comprehensive reform has not happened. And the reality is that it could be a while before it does happen. And so we do have to work within our current system with all its imperfections and with all its warts to try to make it as efficient and effective as possible, which is why this report today is valuable because it gives much food for thought for ideas that may be worth considering.
In addition to all the variety of benefits on integration policy, as were noted in MPI's paper, substantially, a federal policy on integration would also reduce the level of anti-immigrant sentiment that that exist. In addition to enhancement of services, better coordination, it's also required for a successful integration policy. So having this office that would be coordinating many of other agencies and many services and different points in their personal and professional journeys would be extremely important. Having a single entity at the White House level to map out, several models for full civic engagement, for social integration, and then work within agencies to best support the states and would be really very, very valuable. A single office overview would also allow for ease in replacing replicating best practices across agencies and also eliminating duplication and consolidating programs and bringing together different agencies.